Hi, I'm Susan Sandoval, and this is the oral briefing of Marathon Bomber of Boston, Massachusetts. First, let's take a glimpse at the Boston Marathon bombing that occurred at 2:50 p.m. on April 15, 2013. Two incidents in the vicinity of the end of the race took the lives of three individuals and wounded 264 people. It was a relatively sunny morning, and what should have been a time of ultimate joy and triumph quickly and violently metamorphosed into tragedy, destruction, and utter chaos and confusion. The blasts detonated 12 seconds away from each other, close to the marathon's completion on Boylston Street. The explosive devices comprised of pellets that resembled BBs and nails. The bombs were enclosed in pressure cookers concealed within knapsacks. The victims are as follows: Martin Richard, 8, a student at Neighborhood House Charter School in Boston; Crystal Campbell, 29, of Medford, Massachusetts; Lingzi Liu, a graduate student at Boston University. She was originally from China. Differing details began appearing about potential development in the Boston Marathon bombing incident. Some media channels quoted the U.S. law enforcement representatives as stating late night on Wednesday that apprehension was forthcoming or occurred in the incident and the accused would be delivered in front of the courts. The Federal Bureau of Investigation refuted it in a powerful declaration that rebuked the media. They stated, "Over the past day and a half, there have been many press reports based on information from unofficial sources that has been inaccurate." End quote. And since these stories often have unintended consequences, we ask that the media, particularly at this early stage of investigation, to exercise caution and attempt to verify information through appropriate official channels before reporting. End quote. But some outlets asserted that a person of concern may be in arrest. A huge media crowd gathered before the courthouse in Boston in expectation of the suspect or person of interest being delivered there. And immediately, law enforcement of the city of Boston identified the key stakeholders involved in the incident and then communicated with them. Unified Command commenced establishing instance after the blast, when leading law enforcement professionals and emergency management officials combined on Boylston Street and instantly started organizing urgencies. Fewer than 40 minutes in the wake of the blast, UC transferred functions to a unified command center forming at the neighboring Westin Hotel. The UC would eventually include the governor, Mayor of Boston, Secretary of Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Massachusetts State Police, the superintendent, also the Boston Police Department Commissioner, Boston Fire Department Commissioner, Boston Emergency Medical Services Chief, and Director of the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management. The UC made the determination on initial law enforcement reaction and examination problems, as well as ensuring the scene of the crime, verifying the magnitude of the continuing threat, and safeguarding the crucial public services, as well as overseeing the competitors cleared off the path. The UCC remained operational until Tuesday, April 16, 2013. Law enforcement officers and other Boston organizations made use of social media to update each other at the moment. Boston PD used Twitter to provide a task force tip line number so people could call if they had any tips on the case. A shootout in Watertown, Massachusetts killed Tamerlan Tsarnaev. One of the suspects, his brother Dzhokhar, was wounded but fled. A manhunt launched and thousands of law enforcement officials combed Watertown. The FBI and Boston PD circulated numerous pictures of the topic of their manhunt on social media. The Boston PD used Twitter to instruct the people of Boston on how to best remain safe and used Twitter and Facebook to tell the residents of Watertown on how to best remain safe, on the residents of how to stay indoors and not answer the door unless they were instructed by a police officer to do so. Social media was also used to keep the law enforcement officials safe after reporters and the public began tweeting from police scanner reports, giving away the locations of the officers involved in the manhunt. A police tweet was sent out reminding people not to give away the location of officers conducting searches for the bomber. The Boston Police Department was extremely effective in communicating with the media and the sharing of information with the public. Moreover, the law enforcement agency's presence on the social media assisted in the overall communication with the public exceptionally well. According excuse me. According to Fiodaka, the woman behind the Boston Police Department's Twitter account, Twitter served as a great way to correct misinformation. We enhanced our reputation by putting out reliable and accurate information. Upgrades to communications technology in the years following September 11th attacks allowed for reliable voice contact among first responders, but problems emerged when they tried to quickly share data, including videos that ultimately led to apprehension of Tsarnaev brothers. Boston Police Department had a well-developed and rehearsed crisis communication plan. Although unified, community security preparation was done well. A single, united, broad operational strategy for all community security organizations was not formed for the 2013 Boston Marathon, to my knowledge. Collaborators formulated many singular strategies concentrating on specific disciplines and/or jurisdictions, but these plans were not coordinated to produce a single functioning plan or to assist the sharing of the common operating plan. The layout and substance of the singular plans were unbalanced and wide-ranging in material and intensity of detail from neighborhood to neighborhood and from organization to organization. Also, even though numerous proposals pinpointed prospective places that may operate as refuges for participants, not one of the plans specified how entrants would be instructed to shelters, or how they would be moved to a final place. There were also some components of resources to cope with, a course disturbance, and there were no exact particulars on how a reaction to a route interruption would be synchronized between fields and jurisdictions. To reply to the Boston Marathon violence and the events that followed in the subsequent days is an astonishing illustration of how pre-existing associations among branches of leadership and public safety and public health partners augment capability and scope to respond to complicated occurrences in a way that can solidly be captured or addressed in a written plan. The Boston Police Department's response to the crisis integrated with the local municipality. Pre-existing expert associations between main management and frontline workers established through years of preparation for the Boston Marathon and additional occasions, preparation and working out together, and also involvement with previous large-scale occurrences demonstrated to be extremely significant throughout the incidents that week. These connections developed the trust and rapport that allowed for unified command to come together promptly and backed well-timed, efficient, and cooperative decision-making. These connections also granted management to call for reserves, task operations, organize reciprocal assistance, and manage communications efficiently. It took just a couple of phone calls or individual discussions between high-ranking management to gain authorization and coordinate support for several facets of the response. The relationships also encouraged the synchronization of supplying aid for participants, supplied faith in capacities, and improved the communicating of info among city, regional, state, and federal associations. Even at the maximum level, the connection and the collaboration were obvious. The governor, excuse me, the governor and the mayor were also very familiar with each other and were able to effortlessly bring together local and state resources as necessary and organize joint press conferences and information released at them. For the most part, the Boston Police Department followed their best practices in terms of communication, despite an EOC faltering. The EOC's was not set in motion for the beginning of the race. In the past, it was Boston's standard procedure to release only discipline, specialized control positions to sustain race day activities, but not the Boston EOC. However, it was working half an hour following the bombings. This impeded the activation of Boston's Web EOC. The delay could have been avoided even if it was partially opened to allow for staffing purposes. There was also there was also a lack of communication between leadership on the ground, decontaminating the explosives and hospital personnel. When the ground level personnel knew that the bomb was negative for contaminants, they failed to communicate with the hospitals. This in turn led to hospital personnel making critical decisions based on decontamination procedures. The Boston Police Department was outstanding, and it was so simple and effective. This was according to Lieutenant Zachary Perron, the Public Information Officer for the Palo Alto, California Police Department. They became the news source during the crisis. It was watershed moments for law enforcement and social media, end quote. This fostered a sense of trust in how the Boston Police Department communicated with the public. So as it was written in the Bible in James 2:14 through 17, what good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace, be warmed and filled," without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also, faith by itself, if it does not have works, it is dead. This biblical principle could be integrated into the information sharing strategy that was utilized by the Boston Police Department. BPD could integrate the service to the public through communication and faith in their plan to bring forth a united strategy. Every large-scale event uncovers matters that should have been completed in a better manner. This is equally the same for the Boston Marathon. Overall, Overall, the law enforcement organizations and city leadership worked smoothly and collaboratively to make critical decisions in communications and in operations. Crucial lessons were learned in the process that will only serve to improve response procedures and communication strategies for future events. Thank you.